Welcome to your semester exam review for the spring semester, part 1. Robin says hi, by the way. Anyways, good luck. That's what he would also probably say, but you got to watch this video and hopefully study, and that'll help you get ready for the test. Well, you got to be ready for the test. Alrighty, so for the first thing, let's make note. Omit 29 through 41, lucky y'all. Those we will not cover. I might add to this as I look further into this review, but those are the ones that just way stood out to me. Alright, so next part 2. For problems 1 through 3, you can say use this idea of multiply, add exponents, parentheses, multiply the exponents, add, do nothing with exponents. And keep in mind when we add, we're saying x plus x is 2x, not x squared. That's what we mean by do nothing with the exponents. And then we'll kind of go from there. You can pause this if you need to copy this down to help you for your note card or note page, whatever I decide to do. So that means for these first problems, you gotta say the base numbers, the big numbers, the numbers that are in the front, the coefficients, you've got to multiply them. So 19 times 12 times negative 2 gives me negative 456. But the variables with the exponents, the x1, and x negative 12, you would have to add. That would give you x negative 10. And then the 19 and 3 you would have to add for the y's to get 22. Then you would rewrite that and keep in mind that the negative exponents should be moved to the bottom so they become positive. And so you would get a final answer of negative 456 y squared over x10. Same thing here, 13 times negative 6 would give me negative 78. Negative 5 plus 1 would give me negative 4. 9 plus 2 would give me 11, so the x is moving down to the bottom. And there you go again. Finally, and I did this differently for different classes, but probably the easiest way to do this is go ahead and simplify everything first. Okay, so simplify this first, and then worry about the 2. So I'll have something like this. 28 divided by 14 is 2. X 8 minus 4, because when you divide, you subtract the exponents, is 4. 9 minus 18 is negative 9. Then I can say to the second power. And then that 2 needs to multiply all the exponents. Now, does that mean it multiplies just the 4 and the 9? No. You got to give the 2 an exponent. Everything has an exponent, and the 2 on the outside needs to multiply all the exponents. So 2 times 1 would give me 2 squared, and 2 squared is 4. 2 times 4 is 8, so that would give me x8. And then 2 times negative 9 would be negative 18, so I'm going to go ahead and move that to the bottom, y18. These next 2 examples would be just those where you would just add or subtract. So that means you should do nothing with the exponents, which means just combine the like terms. So 9 plus 2 is 11, x squared. Negative 15 plus 7, or minus 7 would be negative 22, and bring down the negative 6x. Notice the minus is changing the sign of all the numbers in the second parentheses. So now I've got, instead of saying like plus 11 or plus 16, I've got negative 11, negative 16, and a positive 6. Combine all the like terms, and that would give me negative 18x squared minus 19x plus 21. Number 6, you're going to do distributive property, so that's multiplication, which means then you're going to add the exponents for the x and y's, and that would give you the negative 120x squared y4. Keep in mind that if you don't see an exponent, presume there's an exponent of 1. Alright, long division, because y'all love long division. Alright, so long division here, what I do, I always take the lead term from each row. So 9x squared, divided by the divisor, x, so the lead term for the divisor, 9x squared divided by x is equal to 9x. So that would leave me with, then I would take that number, that answer, put it on top, notice how it's lined up, and then I would say 9x times x is 9x squared, 9x times negative 4 is negative 36x. Then you will change the sign, just like in this, that's the way of saying subtraction. Because normally when we did long division, we would say, okay, then we subtract. Well, subtract is just changing the sign. So there you go. And thus you would get negative 1x plus 4. So I'm saying negative 1x divided by x, which is negative 1. Which give me that. Negative 1x times x is negative 1x. Negative 1 times negative 4 is positive 4. And this is why I was trying to explain to somebody how then the next step would be to subtract. What does that do? That changes the signs. Okay, so then there's no remainder, so your final answer is 9x minus 1. Number 8, same problem, doing the same thing. 9x squared minus 149x minus 18. You get the same idea. 9x times x is 9x squared. 9x times negative 16 is negative 144. Change the signs. And then subtract or combine like terms. Now I'm going to divide by negative 5x by x, which give me negative 5. And then combine. This time you got a remainder. And there's two ways to write the remainder. More than likely, the one on the right is the method that you would probably see on the test if it was multiple choice or whatever. So I leave it up to you, whichever you feel like you would like to do. 9 and 10 ask you to do it by synthetic division. Okay, notice here how like it said divided by x minus 9, but I wrote here plus 9 or positive 9. So always make sure that if it's in parentheses like that, x minus a parentheses, then you're going to use the opposite. Okay, or x plus a number. Okay, so bring down the 12. 12 times 9 would be 108. Combine, multiply, combine, multiply. So that's what I'm doing every time. Like I combine these two, and then I would multiply the 9 times the answer and write the answer up there. Combine, and then the 9 times the answer and write that up there. Notice this one has a remainder of 0, so then that means I just write, if this was x cubed, this one will be, the one under it will be x squared. So you can see my final answer is 12x squared minus 43x plus 38. Number 10. Number 10 will bring down the 9, multiply, combine, got a 0, and it's the same thing. Most of that's fairly easy. I'm sure y'all won't have any problems. Number 11. Let's look at that. So what I have here is 3 different ways you can do this problem. The first way is to simply plug in negative 3 and positive 3 into all the x's and come up with 2 separate answers. And you can see here are the answers, right down here at the bottom. The second way is on the calculator. Graph this function right here, and then you'll press Control T. And from there, you will get a table. And if you need me to show you that, I'll show it to y'all tomorrow. But you will get a table, and then you can find out, like when you look at the table, you'll see like x, and then say f of x, something like that. And you'll see at negative 3, it'll say 319. That's where you get the answer. And at positive 3, it's going to say 901. So that's where you would get those answers for those. And that's probably the simplest way. The third way would be to use synthetic substitution, but I'll save that for when I go over problems 20 and 21. Okay, so for those of you that got this bit about factoring for 12 through 19, keep in mind that there is a fourth thing we have to keep in mind is factor by grouping. Which problem number 14 has you do. So we'll look at those examples, but you can see here, greatest common factor, the quadratics, cubics, we'll get to all of those examples. Keep in mind there was a special way of doing quadratics when there was numbers in front, which I will cover. So let's look at the first problem. Okay, for this, what you're supposed to technically do is say, find the greatest common factor. Now, the way you're supposed to say 9 or the largest number that divides into 9 and 18. Always try the lowest number first. Okay, so the largest number that divides into 9 and 18 is 9. 9 divided by 9 gives you an answer of 1. 18 divided by 9 gives you an answer of negative 2. There are 4 x's in the first term, and there's only 2 x's in the second, which means that I should be able to take out 2 x's. If I take out 2 x's from 4, I'm left with 2 x's. Okay, if I take out 2 x's from the second term, I'm left with no x's, so there's nothing after the negative 2. In the first term, I have a y, and the second one I have 2 y's. So I can take out 1 y, and that would leave me with none in the left. But on the right, if I take out 1 and there was 2, I'm still left with a y. So there's that factoring like that. There is a different way where you can like start listing these out like 1 and 9, 3 and 3, and try to find the largest number. 118, 2 and 9, 3 and 6. And you can see here like largest number and the leftover to help you figure out these. It's a little bit longer, but I can show you how to do that if you like, but ask me in class. 13 does the same thing. 18 divided by 20, or 18 and 27, the largest number that goes into 18 and 27 is 9. 18 divided by 9 is 2. 27 divided by 9 is negative 3. A4, A3. If there's 4 A's in one and 3 A's in the other, I can take out 3 A's. That leaves me with 1 left in the first one, but not any in the second one. B squared, that means there's 2 B's and on both. I can take out the 2B, and I'm left with just a minus 3. And that's your answer for that one. Fairly simple, fairly easy. Okay, if you notice here on number 14, you have 4 terms. Anytime you have 4 terms, think you're going to do factor by grouping. Okay, so what does that mean? That means you're going to put parentheses around the first 2 terms, you're going to put parentheses around the last 2 terms, and that's what you're going to work with. Okay? The first 2, you're looking for greatest common factor. So factor by grouping is like a greatest common factor type of problem. What can I take out of both? What is the largest number that divides into 30 and 45? And for that, you would have to say that's 15. Okay? 15 divides into 30 gives you an answer of 2. 45 divided by 15 gives you an answer of 3. And then you can also take out a y because there's a y in both of those. Whoops. That would leave me with a 2x minus 3. Now, in factor by grouping, when you have a problem like this, if you have that parentheses, you put it twice. So if you want to find that number that should be in the middle, well, easy. Just divide the 48 by negative 3. 48 divided by negative 3 is negative 16. So my final answer here is to put the repeater parentheses together and take the 2 numbers that were outside that repeater, the parentheses that repeated, and put them together. And that's your answer. That's it. You're done. Bada bing, bada boom, that's it. And so there you go. Alright, so let's look at 15. 15, that's a quadratic. So this is where I would use that quadratic ideas. Minus plus is a minus minus. I told you if there was a number in front, go ahead and put that number that's in front in both x's. You will get rid of it later. Then you're supposed to say 3 times 20 is 60. And then you're trying to find 2 numbers that multiply to give you 60 and add up to negative 16, which in this case would be 10 and 6. Again, you had an extra 3, so you have to divide one of those by 3 because it's prime. So when it's prime, you can always divide by the number that's in the front of the x. Okay, so that leaves me with 3x minus 10 over times x minus 2. Okay, for number 16, here I would do this, 20x plus, 20x minus, 20 times 18 was negative 360. And I'm looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give me negative 360, but would subtract to give me a 9. And it's going to be plus minus. I kind of was dancing around with some numbers, but somebody was already telling me in my class that it was 15, so I tried 15 and it ended up being 24. And that works because 24 minus 15 is 9. So 24, 15. Now, here's the thing you got to be careful of when the numbers are not prime. 20 is not prime. Neither of those parentheses is divisible by 20. But that means then both parentheses are going to be divisible by something else. So like the second one I can divide by 5, and the first one I can divide by 4, and this would be my simplified answer. And one quick easy way to check, 5 times 4, multiply the first times the first, it gives me 20x. 6 times negative 3 gives me negative 18. So there's an easy way to check my work, and there you go. Okay, so a problem like number 17, that's a cubic. When you only see 2 terms and you see that cube, that tells you that's cubic. Now that would be where it would be helpful to know that, like, say 2 cubed is 8 and 3 cubed is 27, you know, and knowing like your cubes. So like having that chart would be good. So what's the cube root of 8? That's a 2. And the cube root of 27 is a 3. And then since there's an x cube, I'll put an x. Since there's a y cube, I'll put a y. That's a plus. Okay, so for the next part, I'm supposed to square this term. Okay, 2 squared is 4. X squared. Notice 4x squared times 4 times 2 is 8. 4x times x squared is x cubed. 3 squared is 9y squared. There's always a plus there. Then the term in the middle, if this one's plus, then you got a plus and then a minus. If it had been a minus, it would have been minus then plus. 2 times 3, this is what AB means. That's what that little formula says. AB, 2 times 3 is 6, and you put the xy together. And that, when you multiply, would give you that cubic up there, and that's it. You're done. That's all you can do with this type of problem. So notice how this right here fits the cubic, and in this case this was part A. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, I'm only going to do like maybe 2 more because I don't like to go too long on these, and I'm already going too long. 18 and 19 are very similar, so let's look at x to the 4th minus 65x squared plus 784 equals 0. So now this is an equation, but we're going to factor these by solving. Okay, could you factor this by graphing or solve it by graphing since it's equal to 0? Probably could, but we'll discuss that later. Okay, this is in quadratic form, which means you can technically go like this. Split the x4s up to x squared, minus plus is a minus minus. You're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give you 784 and would subtract to give you a 65. Okay, did I say subtract? I meant to add. Okay, so 784 and 65 add up to that, and I actually kind of cheated a little bit and said 49 and 16. And the reason why I say I cheated a little bit was because I knew these would have to be squares. So I kind of worked with that. So I've got 49 and 16 equals 0. Now, here's the tricky part on this. Every time you see x squared minus a number, think that it's going to be, I gave myself too big of a parenthesis, x plus x minus that square root. So both of these have x plus, x minus. Okay, square root of 49 is 7. Square root of 16 is 4. So then that means x is equal to, take the opposite of each one of these. So the opposite of a positive 7 is negative 7. The opposite of negative 7 is positive 7. The opposite of a positive 4 is negative 4. The opposite of a negative 4 is positive 4. And there's your answer. Notice you have 4 x's for your answer, and we're supposed to have 4 x's. Okay, let's look at the other one. 19, which will be my last problem for this part 1. X to the 4th minus 15x plus 44 equals 0. And again, x squared minus numbers that multiply to give me 44 and would add to give me 15. Looks like it would be 11 and 4. Right? Yeah. Okay, so 11 and 4 equals 0. Okay, so you get that. 11 times 4 is 44. 11 plus 4 is 15. Okay, so let's think about this. If I follow the pattern that I just showed you, and let's do it this way. This will work. Okay, so I'm going to put x plus, x minus, x plus, x minus. The square root of 4 is easy. That's 2. So that means my answer is going to be a negative 2 and a positive 2. What's the square root of 11? Well, if you type it in the calculator, you get a decimal. So just leave it like that, square root of 11. That'll work. And so that means your answer is negative 11 and square root of positive 11. And there you go. Kind of ran out of space there. I didn't think I was going to need that much space. And that's it. Anyways, that's part 1 for today. Apparently it looks like with a bunch of extra problems, I'm going to have a lot more parts than I usually do. But there you go. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll continue this when I see y'all next time. Thank you. Take care.